Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy. This video is for anyone who feels like they're going through the shit right now. Like it's tough and you're not sure if you can handle it. A lot's hitting the fan. This one's for you. The 17th century writer and philosopher Moliere said that the greater the obstacle, the more glory in overcoming it. You know, when you're going through it, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of glory in it, does it? We all go through shit sometimes. Sometimes it just hits the fan, things fall apart. It doesn't feel that glorious, a breakup, a job loss, the end of a wonderful relationship, something not working out, the loss of someone that you care deeply about, maybe even just a pet. Sometimes we all get there, right? And in that moment, it's really hard to keep perspective in terms of it's all going to be okay or there's something good that's going to come from this. But the reality is there is. Even though, Moliere's quote, the greater the obstacle, the more glory in overcoming it, seems a little trite. There's a lot of truth to it. And I'm going to explain exactly what I mean. I'm going to give you some examples to help you understand exactly what I mean so that if you are going through it, you can look at this in a bigger way, in a way that will actually help serve you to stay on track and get through it. Okay? Let's do this. So let me start with some context. Uh, Viktor Frankl, who I've talked about before. If you haven't read this book, it's fantastic. I'll share a link in the show notes. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl went through the Holocaust and he lost pretty much his whole family. He spent time in a death camp, made it through, became a world-renowned psychologist, and he talked about his experience. And this is the extreme version. I know that's not what you're going through necessarily, but we're going to come back from this. Trust me. He talked about the one thing that made the biggest difference in whether or not people survive, including himself, and that was the perspective. The perspective of, when you've lost all control over everything else, the one thing that you don't lose control over is your perspective, the way you look at the situation. You'll always have that, and it's your choice entirely what you do with that. Now, I know it doesn't necessarily feel that way when you're in it. So that's why we're here to talk more about this and how to get there if you're going through it, or if you run into it, how to get there. I remember in 2003, I was listening to the radio. I was at work, and I had one of those jobs where I could listen to the radio. And a story came on about a guy in Utah who was backpacking. His name's Aaron Ralston. Maybe you've heard the story. Well, Aaron, he's out canyoning, hiking through these canyons. He's doing a solo hike out middle of nowhere, dry, desolate desert. And he's going through these canyon walls and stuff. Part of the thing you do is you kind of climb canyon walls a little bit. And somehow a big boulder came loose and rolled and pinned his arm against this canyon wall. Now, this is a very heavy boulder, and it's a slit canyon, and the boulder came down and kind of locked in between the two canyon walls. So here he is in the middle of nowhere. No one knows where he's at because he didn't tell anyone where he's going. So this is a very common thing for him. And he's stuck. He's stuck. He can't get loose. He's pinned to this wall. His arm is probably broken. He can't move this boulder. It's far too heavy. What are you going to do? After the first day, he realized it's getting pretty major. He's waiting for somebody to come along, hoping somebody will find him in this slot canyon, thinking probably they won't because it's not that popular location. He's out in the middle of nowhere. There's a chance. He's hoping maybe someone will come along. Well, day 2 goes by. Now he's running out of water. He's running out of food. There's a very limited supply. It's just what's on his back. And he's got one arm he can kind of manipulate it with, and he's in pain, and he's exposed to the elements, and it gets very cold at night in the desert. So he's suffering from exposure. He's suffering from dehydration. He's pretty soon going to start suffering from hunger, and then he's somehow made it through all the shock of this. Now he gets to day 3. Now he's out of water, out of food. Day 4. By day 5, he starts to feel like maybe no one's coming. And he realizes he has to do something about this situation. The situation is his to choose what he does with. And he knows that all he has is what's in his pack, what's in his pockets, and what's in his mind. So far, he's kept a positive attitude about this. He's in a do or die, literally do or die situation. So he's got to do something. How do you get free when your arm's pinned against a boulder? You're pinned. You can't move. So he pulls out a very dull knife that he has, the only knife he has. He's thought about this already, of course, but it's a very dull knife. It's a multi-tool, like a Leatherman kind of thing, and decides the only way out of this thing is to free himself from his arm, from the elbow up. He's going to leave it. So he does what needs to be done. He ties it off really tight so he doesn't bleed out, proceeds to saw his own arm off, and he walks out until he runs into a couple people on the trail further up who get medevaced out. Now, the reason I share this story is because, if you haven't heard it, check it out. Aaron went on to do some incredible stuff. He wrote a book. His book was called Between a Rock and a Hard Place. I'll share a link in the show notes. Great read. His life, he suddenly became famous for doing this thing that really was just about him not trying not to die, right? Like you're in this situation where you have a choice of either dying or not dying, and you choose to not die, and you get famous for it. This is what happened to Aaron. Aaron ended up going on the speaker circuit talking about this because so many people wanted to hear about it. He ended up writing the book, of course, and then there was a film made in 2010 called 127 Hours that was about this ordeal, which is a pretty good depiction of what happened. The reason I bring this story up is because we all go through it. And, Aaron, he's just a normal person. We're not talking about somebody who's now, as world famous as Viktor Frankl, though Aaron's fairly famous now. But this is something that could happen to any of us. Not that the Holocaust couldn't, but it's less likely. But any of us could find ourselves in a do or die situation like Aaron Ralston and have to make a decision about what we're going to do in the situation. And in your life right now, if you're going through it, you may feel like it's a do or die situation. It may not be one of those situations where you feel like, well, I'm going to die, but maybe you feel like your life is dying slowly. Aaron had this great attitude. The quote he had that I loved was, he said, it was the perfect situation for me, talking about this ordeal. In retrospect, he looks at this and he says, it was the perfect situation for me because of all my past experiences, I had to draw on almost everything that had ever happened to me in my life in order to come through it. I had to draw on everything that had previously happened to me in my life in order to come through it. And if you're going through it right now, that's where you're at. You have to draw on those things. But how do you do that? How do you keep the perspective? You see, it's hard to imagine that this struggle you're going through, that this suffering is valuable in any sort of way. But it turns out it is. It really is. And I'll explain what I mean. Soren Kierkegaard, the great Danish philosopher, said life can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived forwards. And what he means by this is that when we look back at what we've been through, we can see what an epic journey we've been on. If you told your 6-year-old self the kind of life that you're going to have up until now, would they have believed it? Would they have believed the stuff you've gone through, the beauties you've experienced, the joys, the wonders, the things you've seen, the places you've been, the people you've loved, or the trials you've been through that you were strong enough to get through? Your child self, your 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old self, could have never imagined how powerful you are, never imagined how strong you are, that you could go through what you've been through to get to here. But you have. You have. Every time you look in the mirror, you should remind yourself of that. You're more powerful than you think about every single day. You're more powerful than you know, perhaps. But it's all prelude. This you're going through is prelude to the greatest story you will ever experience, because you're experiencing it personally. We all love the hero's journey stories. Like Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, the whole Star Wars series, the Wizard of Oz, Lord of the Rings. These great epic stories are all about somebody going through some harrowing situation to achieve great things and then return back to themselves, back to their home. Like all these stories, they always return home. The Wizard of Oz, they always return home, right? Star Wars, Luke returns home. In their own way, they return back. Lord of the Rings, and then you look at something like Game of Thrones, one of the greatest, most epic, most successful TV series in history. is just jam packed with heroes' journey stories. Each one of the characters in this, the vast majority of these characters, go through a personal hero's journey, all to return to a greater place inside of themselves, to find that they're stronger and better and more capable than they ever thought they would be or could be. They're an evolved and greater version of themselves. Everything that you're going through right now is prelude to your future, to the story you'll look back at like you're a 6-year-old child now. And when you look back at it then, you'll be amazed at what you accomplished and what you went through. And it all comes down to the perspective of understanding that this moment in your life is prelude to the greatest story you'll ever witness. And the greatest story you'll ever witness personally. Whatever you're going through, keep the perspective. Stay strong, keep perspective. Today is prelude to the greatest story, your epic journey. You got this. Thanks for being here. If you haven't checked out the Soul Podcast yet, be sure to check it out. I think you'll like it. I'll see you on the next video.